Our first movie is Lethal Weapon 2, and in a summer of sequels, which have often been pale imitations of the originals, this one is an exception to the rule. The original Lethal Weapon was one of the smartest and most exciting cop-buddy action pictures of recent years, and Part 2 is as smart, as exciting, and just as well written. This is not a lazy retread, but a sincere effort to do justice to the original film, and it really worked for me. With a lot of sequels, the filmmakers use all of their ideas in the first movie and then they just rip themselves off the second time around, but not this time. Lethal Weapon 2 was directed by Richard Donner, a talented action director who also made the earlier film as well as the original and best Superman movie. His writer this time is Jeffrey Boehm, and together they've kept the feel and charm of the original film, including the odd couple relationship between the middle-class Glover and the street-crazy Gibson. And then they've added some effective villains, and especially the brilliant comic relief of that fast-talking little government informer played by Joe Pesci. The movie is entertaining from one end to the other.
Not for me. I had sort of a split reaction to the picture. I liked all the things happening outside of the main characters. I think Joe Pesci is absolutely wonderful. You know, if comic roles are ever going to get Oscar nominations for supporting, at least, this I think would qualify. He's terrific. And I liked this woman, Patsy Kensit, who you didn't mention, who was the girlfriend, the love interest of Mel Gibson. I thought she was really erotic and kind of exciting, fresh face. She's a rock singer. But the two main guys bored me because they were doing a lot of this false laughter and false... I thought that the guys would be, in reality, much sharper than they were. I thought in the first film, Gibson's character was really suicidal, and that was part of his excitement, because it wasn't just a wild man, he was a wild man for a purpose. Here now, he's just sort of playing being a wild man.
If you remember, Gene, by the end of the first film, he had come back from that feeling
I know what he's supposed to do.
He's still crazy now, but at least he's not depressed.
He wanted to kill himself, now he wants to live. I understand that.
Well, what's wrong with that? That's a good idea, isn't it?
There's nothing wrong with it.
No.
It's just the way it's played.
But they're still interesting guys who know each other and who like each other and who stick together and who save each other's lives in this movie.
Let me ask you something.
Especially in that scene where the booby-trap bomb is going to go off. It's very well played.
Let me ask you one thing. Do you know what I'm referring to when I say about the false conviviality of scenes like that?
I didn't feel it was false. I've seen a lot of movies this summer in which nobody on the screen was as intelligent as everyone in the audience.
Yeah, right.
In this movie, it seemed to me the intelligence level was higher, and they had a lot of interesting new situations, a lot of interesting setups, and special effects here. They were not simply doing a pale retread.
Okay, it's not as bad as the Ghostbusters sequel or the Star Trek
Nowhere near as bad. No.
But I thought that the people around them were original. They themselves were not special.
Okay, even without being able to convert you, I'll just say this. If people want an action picture, instead of Ghostbusters or Star Trek
go see Batman.
or Batman, go see this one. It's a lot more fun. That looks like an innocent young child being gassed with cyanide in Species, but she is no ordinary human, and that is why they are trying to kill her. As the movie opens, we learn that mankind received radio signals from outer space, including the blueprint for a DNA molecule that could be combined with our own human DNA. Species is a very bad movie, and one of the ways you know that is that in a science fiction movie with any brains, the alien doesn't spend most of her time taking off her bra. The team that chases the monster is an ungainly unit, including a professional killer, played by Michael Madsen, and a psychic, played by Forrest Whitaker. By the end of the movie, they're all slogging around in a sewer with the monster. In fact, the movie is just like the alien. It starts out looking good and ends up by getting its kicks by having things jump at us off of the screen.
Well, I enjoyed the picture, Roger.
You did?
I sure did. I enjoyed Natasha Henstridge taking off her bra.
Did, yes.
Absolutely, I did. That's one of the reasons I go to the movies. And I also go for some thrills, and I thought that this team, all different support troops with all their different specialties, including Forrest Whitaker, who has the empathy, and the other guys who have the science and all that. I think they were a great crack team.
And Michael Madsen, who's got his gun and he's going to shoot the alien when he sees it.
I thought it was a lot of fun, except at the end, it does run us around in a in a water pit, and that to me was kind of boring. But up until that point, I thought this was high energy and a lot of fun.
Does it ever occur to you that a movie like this could occasionally be made with a little intelligence, and so a creature that's capable of sending messages across light years of space might not turn into a giant exploding sponge when it gets to Earth?
Hey,
How would
Roger,
that be?
well, you know, they made a good one. Close Encounters of the Third Kind is that kind of...
It's a lot better movie, yeah.
Yes, oh, yes it is, but this is a lot of fun.
What this creature does is basically it turns into something that jumps at you from behind things in order to give manufactured thrills.
They've been doing it for 80 years in the movies. Sometimes it's done well, and this one they did very well.
Time ago.
Rumblefish is the latest film from director Francis Ford Coppola, who unfortunately seems to have lost his way since the high points of his career, the two Godfather movies and the first half of Apocalypse Now. Rumblefish tells the story of problem kids from broken homes, particularly one young kid named Rusty James, played by young actor Matt Dillon. Rusty James doesn't really know his mother. His father is an alcoholic, and his older brother is a suicidal motorcycle-riding gang member. That's why Rusty James has difficulty relating calmly to his girlfriend, played by the young actress Diane Lane. The movie was filmed in black and white. A couple of young actors playing tough guys. Rumblefish is a heartfelt movie, and the black and white photography is moody and attractive, depicting kind of a smoky hell, and it has an interesting soundtrack too. But the story comes across, for me at least, as much too mannered, too artificial for all of its gutty realism of contemporary kids and their contemporary problems. Matt Dillon gets to be boring after a while, frankly, with his James Dean impersonation. Mickey Rourke, the older brother there, whispering, he gets kind of annoying too with all the whispering. And Dennis Hopper is really annoying as the father, the drunk father. In short, there are plenty of kids in the world who have a tough time growing up, and you really do feel sorry for them. But there's a hip smugness to the Matt Dillon character in Rumblefish, and sorry, but I never felt sorry for him at all, and that's why I didn't like the movie.
Well, first of all, his hip smugness, I think, is his defense mechanism. But secondly, and I did like the movie, and I admired it as a very interesting offbeat experiment by Coppola, I think you're missing the whole point if you're reviewing the story and saying, well, we can't really feel sorry for these kids, the other kids with tough problems and so forth. This movie is a stylistic exercise in black and white. Coppola calls it an art film for kids, an art film for teenagers, and I think that's how it plays, kind of like Diva crossed with the Blackboard Jungle, with all those clouds scuttling across the sky in fast motion and all the dramatic shots. That's how it plays. It's atmosphere and mood and behavior, and that's what it's about.
Yeah, but Roger, I reviewed the atmosphere, the soundtrack, and the music, and I liked every one of those things. And yet, it still wasn't enough for me, this kid, that he also included actors in there, and he also included a story in there. And just to focus on one aspect of the film isn't enough for me. He can call it whatever he wants to, but I'm looking at the whole picture there, and I found that kid repellent, when by all rights, I should really feel for his story.
Weren't you touched with a kind of... by anything, not even the three examples I was going to give. You were totally untouched.
Even when, you just said the part of the word his, and that's when I checked out.
Well, I guess I'm not going to be able to convert you, but I don't know. I thought that it was a really interesting film, and I thought that it did work.
Interesting looking, you're absolutely right.
And it would be great to have on your cassette at home and to listen to that music, but never mind. I'll get back to you on that one.
Okay, next movie, and our next film is The Ghost and the Darkness, and I was surprised that I got caught up in this adventure story about an Irish railroad engineer and a professional hunter teaming up to kill two man-eating lions in turn-of-the-century Africa. The Ghost and the Darkness are the nicknames that these lions have. Now, this doesn't sound like a movie that would be made or would work today at all. Killing animals, even man-eaters, is not relevant to most contemporary lives, but I found that Val Kilmer's conviction in his character makes us care about the outcome, and I give the movie a marginal thumbs up.
Boy, Gene, this one is on my list of the worst movies of the year. I was shocked by this movie, and there's one scene in particular I'm going to tell you, and that's when Kilmer builds that rickety little platform and stands up on top of it so that when the lion comes, he can shoot him, and then he's knocked off the platform by a big bird. Throughout this movie, I found both of the performances to be very unconvincing. Kilmer with that really kind of 1990s haircut that never gets a half an inch longer, and he's got the moose in it. And then Douglas, who looks like some kind of a hippie from a Grateful Dead concert. I mean, in the 19th century, a professional game hunter would have looked very sleek and taken a lot of pride in his appearance. This guy looks like a bum.
Douglas doesn't work, but Val Kilmer, I'm sorry, Val Kilmer to me was absolutely, first of all, what's interesting about his character is he's presented as totally in love with Africa, and we sense the wonder of Africa. I know you've been there, I've been there. His feeling was transmitted through me, the feelings that I had when I was there. The next thing is, I think he's stunned by what he has to do, and we see him grow into the character. I think it's a fully developed character.
How about the lion attacks? Didn't they look phony to you? A lot of the times it just looked like a lion's head was being shaken in front of the camera.
It wasn't that bad. Roger, I know that this is not a trendy picture to say that you actually liked. I found that I did.
I'm happy for you.
Predator stars the muscle man with a smirk, Arnold Schwarzenegger, in a story that is part Rambo and part Alien. And that's a tired mix for me. I'm personally tired of seeing a commando armed to the teeth battling a slimy, extraterrestrial creature with a horrendous overbite. I think you get the feeling you've seen this movie before, except, I must say, when the creature arrives. When the creature arrives, that's a little different in the beginning of the creature. But when you see the creature finally at the end of the picture, then you think you're seeing outtakes from the movie Aliens. As derivative as Predator is, though, it's not all bad, not by a long shot. Schwarzenegger can be funny, and the creature, as I said, is a marvelous creation in its invisibility as it moves around and blends with the foliage. But the story is old hat. No, make that recent hat. Rambo mixed with Aliens.
Let me get this straight. You liked the creature as long as you couldn't see it. It was only when you could see it that you didn't like it.
In its full revelation, and I don't want to give away too much of the movie.
You enjoyed the early scenes in The Invisible Man, too.
I did enjoy them. Yes, my imagination is more interesting than the reality.
This movie, I think, is better than you're giving it credit for. It is exactly what it is. It is a pure summer action picture. Yeah. It is 2 hours of excitement. They shot it on location in the jungle, which is a very effective a very effective environment.
For a jungle movie.
No, but I mean, they could have shot it on the back lot somewhere. This looks and sounds right. It feels right. There's a lot of energy in it, and that's what it is. Of course, it's a cross between Aliens and Rambo, but so what? Well, the people who will enjoy this movie can't remember last summer's movies. They probably can't remember last week's movie.
Now, come on. Forget the people. I don't care about the... Obviously, people are going to enjoy it. I don't enjoy it. I'm tired of this stuff, and that's all that I'm paid here to say.
Okay, next movie. Our next movie is named $1 Million... I shouldn't have been so hard on those. But what I'm trying to say is, not that they couldn't remember the movies they'd seen last week, but that it's a Friday night entertainment. Yeah. It's very, very effective.
Your standards are dropping. Your standards are dropping.
My standards are not dropping.
Your standards are dropping.
Your next movie is my standards. You think my standards are dropping. Our next movie, I was about to say, is named $1 Million Mystery. Our next movie is named Body Double, and it's the latest thriller from Brian De Palma, the man who was single-handedly trying to carry on the tradition of Alfred Hitchcock. Sometimes he does a good job, sometimes not so good. This time, I think he does a very interesting job. His movie is sort of a cross between the voyeurism of Rear Window, the phobias of Vertigo, and the shower scene in Psycho, which in this case, De Palma stages with a power drill instead of a knife. This is a violent movie. It deserves its R rating, but it's not as violent as most of the junkie slasher movies that fill the theaters during this season, and it has a lot more style. The movie begins with an unemployed actor who's being hired as a house sitter, and in this scene, he discovers that this house comes complete with a view. That's Deborah Shelton as the woman who fascinates him, and that's great the way that is all built up with just a little dialogue at the end. Later in the movie, without giving away too much of the story, I can say that Watson becomes convinced that a double is being used as part of a murder plot against that woman, and that leads the hero into the world of pornography in search of an actress that he believes may be working as the double. One of the interesting things about Body Double is the way that Brian De Palma uses all sorts of different film styles to tell this story. It starts out with a cheap vampire movie that Craig Watson is allegedly starring in as an actor, and then there's the Hitchcockian scenes like the one we just saw, and then at the end, the spoof on pornography. Body Double has a lot going on, and I thought most of it worked, and also, the movie is definitely scary.
It didn't really scare me, but it certainly intrigued me in the beginning scenes, the ones we just saw. I'm fascinated. It's Hitchcock's Rear Window and Vertigo, and even seeing it done, not quite as well, but the stuff is so fascinating that I watched too. And then out comes the big power drill. And that's when I thought that Brian De Palma lost control of this movie. It became almost cartoonish. It didn't gross me out. It just disappointed me because here were characters that he had got me caught up with and emotions, in my emotions and the characters' emotions, and they got too big, too sloppy.
You know, Gene, if you think back to when Psycho came out, everybody said the same thing about the shower scene, and he's doing the same thing that Hitchcock did. In that shower scene in Psycho, you don't really see the knife entering Janet Leigh's body. You don't really see any nudity. And in this power drill scene, you don't either. It's all done with editing. And the great climactic moment when the power drill
comes through the ceiling.
Yeah.
You don't see anything except that.
I want to tell you, I've seen Psycho recently, Roger, and I liked Psycho. I liked it then. I like it now. I'm reviewing this picture. I don't like the power drill.
Okay,
I don't
the
like
power drill scene is obviously the great moment of truth for everybody who sees this movie. Apart from that, though, what I like, the visual imagination, all the pyrotechnics with the camera, the tilt, the great lighting, the lighting from the side, the lighting from underneath, the romantic music, all of it.
The music is wonderful, and Roger...
It's much more exciting than most thrillers that you go to see today.
Well, you're saying it's better than garbage? Yes, I'll say it's better than garbage. I won't say it's a
little
good
more
film.
than that. I didn't quite say that.
Yeah, it is a half of a movie. When it starts to go into the porno world...
Thumbs up, thumbs down.
Down, and sadly...
That's Robin Williams as a newly divorced actor who desperately wants to spend more time with his children in the new comedy Mrs. Doubtfire. Mrs. Doubtfire is funny at times, but not that funny, and I guess it's supposed to be sort of moving, too, that a father would go through such an effort for his children, but somehow I never saw a father there. I only saw Robin Williams in a role that was tailor-made to exploit his talent for impersonation without ever really using his talent as an actor.
Well, I enjoyed this film a lot, Roger, and I think that the problem maybe for some people, they're going to compare this against Tootsie.
Oh, yeah.
And Tootsie is a classic, great American film. This is not in that league, but I think there's some sequences that are, and I'm particularly talking about scenes that you didn't get the chance to show, and that is a scene where Robin Williams has to run in the restaurant. This is a long chunk of the film.
And it didn't work.
Oh, my God, I think that is classic farce.
It never took off.
And he has to play Mrs. Doubtfire in one part of the restaurant with his wife and kids.
Yes.
Then he has to play the struggling actor trying to get a job on his TV station with his boss. And the running before, I tell you, there was genuine tension developed.
That scene was set up as a kind of screwball classic scene,
and I think it is.
Never paid off on that level.
I think that is wonderful.
They just couldn't get it to work.
I thought that was wonderful, and I think that there are tender moments in the film, too. There are some, the little sequence you saw that you said at the employment office, that's kind of silly.
Yes, it is.
But that's a minute out of a really enjoyable film. It's called Eddie Murphy Raw, and this is the movie I've been waiting for ever since I heard about it, just after I saw and was disappointed by Beverly Hills Cop 2, because that was Eddie Murphy as a wind-up action toy. But Eddie Murphy Raw is Murphy as Murphy in concert with the rawest of language, and he's never been funnier. For example, he names names at the beginning of his concert, putting down hilariously Michael Jackson, and then he puts down Bill Cosby, even worse than Roger just did a while back. There's not a lot more than we can show you of Eddie Murphy Raw without you hearing more bleeps than words. He's foul, but very funny, talking in brutally honest comedic terms about sex and marriage. The concert tails off at the end somewhat with a tired bit about how badly white people dance. Most of us know that. But more often than not, at least us two, more often than not, Eddie Murphy lives up to the concert film standard set by the man he calls his idol, Richard Pryor. And that is high praise indeed. I really liked Eddie Murphy Raw, and I knew that I would. He should release, I think, a concert film every year, because the parts that are written for him, by and large, with the exception of 48 Hours, really haven't been that good.
Gene, I don't think this film deserves comparison to Richard Pryor in any way, because what Richard Pryor has is insight and sympathy with the humanity of the people that he's making fun of, and that's the one thing that's lacking in this concert film by Eddie Murphy. It's an extremely juvenile film. The humor is extremely callow. You talk about his attack on Johnny Carson's wife. I don't believe anybody could get away with talking about blacks the way that Eddie Murphy talks about women in this film, on the basis of what he says in this film and the way he uses the key four-letter word as a club. This movie hates and despises and puts down and rejects women and sees them only in terms of their sexual function.
Not at all.
Yes,
not at all.
it does.
No, let me answer.
Yes,
let me answer, because the film comes around and goes right back and throws it back at men. Yes, it is more loaded against women than it is against men, but Roger, where is your sense of humor?
It doesn't,
the man is not.
The
man
come
is
around
not.
And throw it at men either.
Yes, it does.
Sees everybody
yes,
in terms of what takes place right between their belt and their knees.
That's a
the
joke.
only part of the human being that he's interested in.
He's making
he doesn't have any interest at all in their personalities, in their problems, in their humanity.
One of their problems
is bathroom humor, Gene.
And
it
it's very
bathroom
funny.
Humor.
It's very funny.
It's not
humor.
that. If you you think it's funny,
Yes,
then
I do.
maybe you need to grow up along with Eddie Murphy.
Oh, Roger,
you could
that's
both go
right.
to Richard
That's
Pryor
right.
and learn how to be a little more mature.
No, let me tell you, it is very, very funny. Oddly, people who haven't seen this film are going to agree, gee, Roger's right, it should be clean, it should be clean.
No, I
you
didn't
really
say
played
it should
to the
be
audience.
clean. I'm not playing to the audience, and
Yeah.
I'm not saying it should be clean. I have nothing against four-letter language.
Right.
I love it when Richard Pryor uses it. Richard Pryor uses it as poetry. Eddie Murphy uses it as a bludgeon.
Okay, I disagree with you. I think Richard Pryor is a genius. I think Eddie Murphy is getting there.
That's a moment of intrigue from our next movie, The End of Violence, directed by Wim Wenders, a filmmaker who has worked both in Germany and America, and his films Paris, Texas, and Wings of Desire are masterpieces. But The End of Violence is a confused and aimless disappointment, a film in which a lot of ideas mill around trying to find the plot. Like his 1991 film Until the End of the World, this new film by Wenders seems to combine several story ideas into a screenplay that has not really been finished. Fashionable ideas about celebrity and alienation rattle around with the B-movie plot about kidnapping, and he throws in the usual cynical backstage Hollywood insider stuff, but the movie is very slow, and there are times when the actors don't seem quite sure what their scenes are about or what they're supposed to feel. The End of Violence is a major disappointment from a major filmmaker.
And I think it's a major achievement from a major filmmaker. Boy,
Really?
we got two pictures that were at cross, but this one, we talk about layers, this film has a lot of layers in it. I thought it was a masterful job of talking about Hollywood by a foreign filmmaker, coming here and I think really laying out an industry that talks about violence and doesn't even know what the power of the images it's presenting. I thought that the domestic relationship was extremely powerful. We just talked about and both praised Godard's Contempt, with a similar kind of relationship of someone in the film industry and his wife, where the loathing is palpable and flies off the screen. And I thought this was very brave and powerful and strong and well acted. This was one of my favorite films of the year, and I don't know...
What about Gabriel Byrne up there with his television cameras?
You know,
Do you
Roger,
believe you
I
can
think-
have hidden TV cameras all over LA
as
to
you
watch
often
everyone?
say to me, it ain't a documentary. I think that Wenders is looking at this country and looking at and laying out a warning of invasion, of observation, of information in that way. And I felt that that was symptomatic of the government overlooking
Well, I'm
things.
sure that describes the theme of the movie, but I don't
Yes.
think it makes it a good movie or certainly an entertaining
no,
one.
let me tell you this. It's the treatment, and man, I think I really, for you, because I know you like him as a filmmaker,
I do.
I would ask
Okay.
you to see this picture again.
I've seen it twice already, Gene. I saw it at the Cannes
Well,
Film Festival, and
okay.
I've seen it again.
Didn't it win a prize there?
As a matter of fact, it was a major flop, yes.
Well, good. What do they know?
Our first movie is Cop and a Half, and it's an entertaining example of the kind of movie formula I call the one's-a movie. For example, one's a cop and one's a robber, or in this case, one's a cop and the other is a precocious kid. Cop and a Half is not any kind of a masterpiece, but on the other hand, it's not dumb and it's not boring either, and a lot of the credit for that goes to little Norman D. Golden II, who is a natural actor, very bright and very funny, but credit must also be paid to Big Burt Reynolds, who takes what might have looked like a thankless role and plays it just right here, finding the balance between toughness and humor. This movie has the kind of chemistry between the grown-up world and a smart kid that I look for and missed in Home Alone 2. It's amusing, it moves, and somewhat to my surprise, I liked it.
Wow, where's your big red suit and beard, Santa? You just gave them a gift.
You didn't like this movie?
No,
you didn't like Little Norman Golden?
No, I didn't think
you didn't like Norman Golden?
No, I didn't think he was a particularly charismatic actor or a very good actor, and I think Burt Reynolds is even worse. And I think that I was really surprised because I didn't feel that there was any chemistry between the two. I thought Reynolds was sort of hard. The kid was sort of looking. You could see him sometimes looking for his lines. And gee, I thought it was dumb, not credible whatsoever.
Reynolds plays the cop like a real cop instead of playing him like some kind of a,
I think it's a cartoon.
marshmallow.
I think it's
It is a cartoon, Gene.
Yeah,
it is a cartoon.
A lame one.
A good cartoon.
Oh, no, I'm stunned, Roger. Okay. Our next film is called Carnosaur, about a mad scientist who hatches a plan to wipe out the human race while genetically engineering the return of the dinosaur to its place as king of the planet. And right away, I like this movie for the sheer goofiness of that idea. Diane Ladd plays the crazed geneticist.
I'm sure this is going to really please Diane Ladd. She's the best thing in the movie, more interesting than the dinosaurs, just what an actress wants to hear. Steven Spielberg's Jurassic Park is coming out next month, and it's going to feature high-tech dinosaurs. It's going to be interesting to see, however, whether he has any humans as enjoyable as Diane Ladd's character in Carnosaur. So a marginal thumbs up for me.
Well, a thumbs down for me, Gene, although I did enjoy Diane Ladd's kind of mad intensity. She has that sort of way of zeroing in on her lines as if everything in the entire future of mankind depends upon what she's doing here.
I think she's one of the craziest characters that we've ever seen in a movie. I mean, this woman is, I mean, she's really way out there. The easiest thing would be, we always get it, the villain is always someone who wants to destroy the world. She's got a very specific plan. She hates people. And she loves dinosaurs and thinks they should be in charge. I mean, that's fabulously loony.
Well, I liked all of that. I agree with you, the dinosaurs aren't too good, and it doesn't help that they shoot them all at night, which I think is a technique to cover up the fact that they're not really very high-tech. I think Spielberg's going to have higher-tech dinosaurs. I also felt that the plot got a little murky when all of the women started to give birth to dinosaurs and everybody broke out in a fever and so forth. I was not quite sure exactly what the master plan was there.
The master plan is, she's thought this through very carefully. She wants to impregnate all the women with dinosaur eggs and destroy the women so they'll die in childbirth, thus eliminating the ability of the human race to keep conceiving.
Well, that explains one of the key lines in the movie, which is half of the species will be exterminated. And then I'm thinking quickly and thinking, and in another generation, the other half will go because there won't be anybody to give birth to them. So
the movie makes real good sense.
That up. Okay.
This is necessarily arbitrary, but I tried to think of the movie from 1993 that I most wouldn't want to see again. The one where I'd say, I'll go to the dentist instead. That has to be Burt Reynolds' latest, Cop and a Half. Yet another cop buddy picture from Burt, this time with him opposite a kid, Norman D. Golden. I'll admit it, Burt Reynolds in a bad movie, and he's so many, makes my skin crawl. He's unctuous and insincere in pictures like this. I like him in other films. In the bad ones, he's really bad. And he also looks just plain tired. That has nothing to do with his personal life. I'm talking about what's up on the screen in Cop and a Half. And the only thing more unnerving than this picture is that my esteemed colleague across the aisle, so wise, so often, is the only major film critic in America who actually recommended Cop and a Half.
Norman D. Golden was just wonderful in this film. Now, you have to admit it.
No, I don't have to admit it. He's an okay movie. He's a Hollywood acting kid.
He was very good.
He's not the problem. The problem is the script. The problem is very funny, and Burt Reynolds is tired. And,
well,
and he should be in cop buddy
pictures. Maybe you just got up on the wrong side of bed.
As did the rest of America.
Okay, now, I'm not sure I'm the only major film critic who didn't
I am sure, Roger.
Because you're probably saying anybody else who liked it isn't major.
I don't know if anyone liked it, but no major critics liked it. No one that you respect.
Glad to see that whenever I like a movie that you dislike, you have that national survey that you
I'm aware of it.
Okay. Now, since your worst film of the year is one that I liked, I'm only too happy to return the compliment,
that's
Gene.
sweet.
My worst film of 1993, to which you gave thumbs up, is Carnosaur, an all but incoherent dinosaur thriller that was rushed into release to cash in on the advanced publicity for Jurassic Park. The movie starred Diane Ladd as a mad geneticist who wanted to wipe out the human race and replace it with dinosaurs, although judging by the look of the dinosaurs in this scene, she needs to spend a lot more time stitching together those DNA chains. And those are the dinosaurs, Gene, you gave thumbs up to. Diane Ladd does give a crazed intensity to her performance in this movie, but she's been so good in so many better movies that it's no favor to call attention to this one, especially with its scenes of women giving birth to dinosaurs, little baby dinosaurs, and the master plan to wipe out half the human race by killing all the men. Now, a scientist should know that if you kill that half of the race, the other half is sure to follow unless the dinosaurs take over, which I think was the plan. Now, I've got to give you credit, though, Gene, in your original review of Carnosaur, you did correctly predict that Steven Spielberg's dinosaurs would be more convincing, and you were right about that.
I was right about it.
All the major critics in America would agree with you.
No. That's a better film. But the point is that this had a lot of fun going on with it. You liked her performance then, and when I explained the story to you the first time through, you said, now I understand.
Oh, come on.
Roger,
now you're making this
Roger,
up.
here's the real
what
bet.
Do you mean,
No. Here is the test. We'll have a double bill. People can go to see Cop and a Half, Roger Ebert recommending it, or Carnosaur, a funky, offbeat, wild science fiction film. Which one will they like best? Which one did you like best? Which one did you like best?
Cop and a Half.
He said it again, ladies and gentlemen.
And you know, I love the way you described that double bill, giving your own movie all of the wonderful adjectives and mine giving it all the,
Burt Reynolds always badmouths both of us. and I gave Cop and a Half a good review, and I'm the only critic in the world who liked that movie.
You must have made a phone call
during that one. And then he goes on some talk show and he's talking about Siskel and Ebert don't like anything I do, and you know, why did I go out on a limb for him? I don't know.
I'm changing my opinion now. Do me one. No, I know you're amazed. Do me one favor.
Yeah.
Look in the camera and say I was wrong about Cop and a Half. It wasn't a very good movie. Burt Reynolds.
No, I won't do that.
What?
No, I won't do that. Listen, I saw things in Cop and a Half that I admired.
That no one else did.
Okay, well, in any event, you've done a very good thing, and I've also done a good thing too by sticking to my guns.